Okay, well, hello. It's been a while since I read aloud onto the camera. So, this is chapter 44 of Zero Day. Addie and Liz sat beneath a big blue umbrella on the patio of the Café du Parc. The French bistro was located on the ground floor of the DC's Willard International Hotel. A low wrought iron fence was all that separated their table from the bustle of Pennsylvania Avenue on the other side. But for a brief moment, as Addie took in the aged facade of the Treasury building across the street, she almost could imagine she was back in Paris. A waiter approached, said bonjour, and placed a basket of warm baguettes on the table. Some fresh bread, he said. Thank you. Liz inhaled deeply. It smells wonderful. Just out of the oven, the waiter said. Do you require more with the menu? Do you require more time with the menu? Yes, please, as Liz answered. We haven't even looked yet. Very well, the waiter bowed his head. I will check back on you. Addie tore off a piece of bread, thinking suddenly of the quaint little cafe on the Avenue des Champs-Élysées. It made Addie's heart ache a little, especially after this afternoon, which Addie had spent at the FBI answering follow-up questions about the Browns. But she couldn't really tell them anything more, not any more than she already had. Up until a few days ago, she hadn't even known they were real people. But Liz placed her hand on Addie's. I know this has been a rough day, she said. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Mom, Addie said. And I have a surprise for you, her mother continued. After we eat, I'm taking you to Janie's studio. We're going to find you something spectacular for prom on Saturday. Addie smiled, but she knew it looked forced. Great, she said, and glanced away. A family was coming up the sidewalk, pushing two twin babies in a double stroller. An older child walked alongside, 3 children. Addie felt a painful swell in her chest. The Browns had 3 children. Addie smiled, and she knew she looked forced. Great, she said, and glanced away. A family was coming up the sidewalk, pushing twin babies in a double stroller. An older child walked alongside, 3 children. Ellie felt a painful swell in her chest. The Browns had 3 children, and now those children didn't have any parents. Addie didn't know what to do to make things right. She only knew the hole in her heart couldn't be patched with designer dresses, no matter how good her mother's intentions were. Liz picked up a menu. Do you know what you want to eat, Addie glanced at the menu and felt her throat tightening. The last time she'd been in Paris, she had an amazing food, a most delicious chicken she'd ever tasted. I'm not sure. I don't really know what any of this is. Her mother was silent for a moment. When Addie glanced up at her, there were tears sparkling in Liz's dark eyes. Mom, Addie said. Gosh, of course you don't. I'm sorry, babe. You've been so strong all day, and now I'm the one who's a mess. And she wiped her tears on the back of her hand. Sometimes it just hits me when I don't expect it. Don't be sorry, Addie said, not really knowing what else to say. I can't help it, Liz said. I know you want to move forward, and I think that's the bravest thing in the world, but sometimes I think I'm still stuck in the past. After you were taking Addie, it was like time stopped. I threw myself into work. I didn't know how else to cope. I'm sure you did your best you could, Addie said. Yeah, I'm not sure, Liz said. I think I'll always wonder. I can't help it. Like maybe I should have just shut myself away after you were taken, like all the critics and people said. Liz let out a sad little laugh. Maybe it's appropriate that the best program I ever created was during that time, and that it will never see the light of day. Addie's hands twitched, making the silverware clink. Best program? What is it? Something called She, Liz then said. She? Addie's heart began to thump wildly. Means guardian, Liz said, or lion, technically in Chinese. I started developing it shortly after you disappeared. So what does it do? Addie asked, even though she knew exactly what it did. There was a reason Father wanted it so badly. Their conversation was interrupted by the waiter's return. Addie listened impatiently as her mother ordered for both of them. When he finally left, Liz raised an eyebrow. Where was I? She said. You were telling me something about a program you created? What it did, I think? Right, She. It basically is a very sophisticated electronic surveillance program. Some kind of spyware? Yeah, Liz answered. But it's not like anything else out there on the market today. The best way I can describe it is it operates like a skilled hacker. You know what a 0-day flaw is? No. It's a flaw in an operating system that isn't discovered until it's too late. And by the time it's found, you have 0 days to fix it. Yes, exactly, Liz said. Well, she seeks out those flaws and corrupts them, exploiting them to gain access to user systems, and then installs itself and runs virtually undetectable in the background, collecting information and transmitting it back to the host computer. It could be programmed to find any type of data that user is seeking. That sounds, Addie struggled for the right words, scary. It is scary, Liz said. Because I programmed She using artificial intelligence, it learns from its mistakes with the primary goal of preserving itself, spreading across systems and collecting data. So even if one flaw is found and fixed, She looks for another. And once it gains a foothold in the system, it spreads exponentially like a virus. There's almost no stopping it once it starts. I'm sure you understand why it couldn't be let loose in the world. Dad, Addie then answered. Everyone knew Mark Webster had run on an anti-spies platform and had spoken out against the NSA-sponsored cyber surveillance program long before he ran for president. Liz sighed. No, of course, your father would never have approved of something like this for domestic use once he became president. But he couldn't have prevented me from selling it at the time. I was the one who pulled the plug. The NSA was all ready to snap it up, but when it came down to it, I just couldn't do it. I think all along I've never really planned on actually letting it be put into use. Why? It's too dangerous, Addie, Liz said. Just think about it. You'd have one user with unfettered access to all data, every single person with a computer, smartphone, you name it. It's terrifying. What if the program ended up in the hands of a dictator or tyrant? So what did you do with it? Her voice shaking. Destroy it? No, Liz said. The only copy is on my development computer in my home office. It's not networked, so no one can access it, but I can't get rid of it. Partly out of pride, I guess, but also because it's the only matter of time before someone else begins to develop the same type of software, and I have to be ready if Nova is going to stay competent. Addie's ears began to ring. So that's why she couldn't find She in any of her mother's directories. It was on a standalone. The waiter came and placed 2 steaming bowls of soup in front of Addie and her mother. The pungent smell of fish made her queasy. I'm sorry, Ad, Liz said. I am boring you with all this work talk. Sometimes I get off on a tangent and forget everyone isn't as interested in programming as me. No, Addie said, I feel like I'm learning a lot. She tried to sip some of the soup. It tasted better than it smelled. I'm curious about something, though, she then said. If you never really planned on letting She see the light of day, why spend all those years creating it in the first place? Like I said, Liz sighed. It was how I coped. A part of me believed that if I could just make the world more secure, you never would have been taken in the first place. That's the end of the chapter. Until next time, thanks for listening.